Yeah.
I know. I was like,
Not over. All right. Now we just wait for the recording. Do it. Hi, everyone. Good evening. All right. Yeah. Welcome to the June 24th Inclusivity Committee meeting. So,
I feel like we're all sitting so far apart.
you know, we're
Okay.
inclusivity doesn't require us to be on top of each other, Chris. This doesn't have to be a second level.
All right. So we'll do attendance and then approval of minutes and then start through the packet if that works for all. Well, it doesn't matter if it works here because that's what we're doing.
It's looking like a true activity.
Well, that part's processed. The
Do we
rest
have
of it
extra
is.
packets?
Oh, you can have this one.
Oh. Okay.
You can.
No.
It's done. All right. So we'll start. We'll go around clockwise and then we'll check in with folks online. Amanda Polly.
Jessica Andrade. Rose Bricker. Ken Amador.
Diane Crocker.
Jane Sherwood.
Alba Caesarlin.
Christopher McMorrin.
And then
I see
who
someone.
do we have online?
Zena Allen.
Oh, perfect.
Hi, Zena.
Hello.
All right. So next item is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Anyone wants to update on those?
Crystal, do you ever consider changing your sign off here to say disrespectfully submitted? Depending on what we say in the meeting. Yeah, yeah.
This was hard.
I want you to do that, like at some point in the next 4 years, and not tell anyone. See if we. Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it off. Cool. Well, if no one has any changes, then everyone's good to approve those?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. So that moves us on to urgent business. I just wanted to mention that Pride is happening this Saturday from noon to 4. The biggest highlight, I think, for this group about that is that Diane has been working with Philomathoregon Community Services to do a food collection for a raffle basket. So for every food item brought or other
Or $1.
Or $1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so donation item or $1 is one raffle ticket, and there's a raffle basket that Diane has put together with some Pride swag, and then Dirt Road donated some swag to add to the basket as well. So those raffle tickets can be purchased at Pride at the PCS table that Diane will be running.
Or traded in.
Or traded in. So,
I have a question.
yeah.
I assume I should come up with a sign or something that says that.
It'd be cool if you could.
We can talk about it, yeah.
It will be just 8.5 by 10 because I don't have access to bigger paper.
Did PCS not make one? Oh, okay.
If it's, we can talk more about the,
I was just curious.
because it's not necessarily committee related, but we can talk logistics about that after. And then, yeah, the volunteer form is out, so people can sign up for shifts. We have a lot of folks who have signed up for specific shifts, so those are available.
Awesome.
And then if anybody has any specific Pride event related questions, we can talk about it after the meeting. You can send Pride, philomathoregon.gov an email, or talk to us after the meeting. So that's my Pride update.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other urgent business that's not on the agenda to discuss before we move forward? All right, hearing nothing. We have public comment. There's no one aside from our cat. Easy peasy. So the first item in our old business section of the agenda is an update from Diane on the age-friendly communities event that you and Jane organized in June.
We had a nice turnout. We have 11 people show up, and we got a lot of ideas to proceed with taking it to the next meeting. Our next meeting is going to take a look at some fraud prevention.
July 8th at 10 a.m. at the library.
Yes.
We've decided to try to do the second Tuesday of each month at 10 a.m. at the library. And we've also decided to maybe come up with a calendar of community events, just not only to let them know that's what's happening, but maybe we can be there and then they can join, and they're not going to be sitting by themselves if they come by themselves. Things like music in the park or the farmer's market or chili feed cook-up, and there was something else recently. But anyway, those things. And then one of the attendees suggested that we come up with a resource guide of for seniors that, you know, maybe they've taken care of their yard for the last 40 years and they can't do it anymore. Where could they find someone to help with that? And so we started collecting information, and then I found out that Dementia Warriors, which is a group of people that meet, and usually one of the persons is either a caregiver or a person suffering with dementia. They had a pretty great start on one, and they were very kind and gave it to us to use. So we've got a big jump ahead of it. If you're at all interested, I got a couple here. These are very rough drafts. It's not formatted or made pretty yet, but we have a lot of resources to share.
Amazing.
We decided to stick with our same poster and just put them up, and one person came from the little poster place right outside this door, and she saw that, and she, at the farmer's market, she went and talked to Christopher, I think, and said, I've come to find out stuff. So it was just great that that worked as well. I think that's it.
Very encouraging.
I'm glad there was such a good turnout for that.
Seriously. Great job.
Yeah.
And I saw the Gursky responded about this.
Yes. So there's a webinar that we are trying to work on technology. So if you show up, the library doesn't have anything, which I was shocked about. But that's fine. They are so gracious about letting us use the space and everything. But so we're trying to come up with our own so we can show the webinar for about, we thought, 45 minutes. The whole webinar is an hour. But Chief Gursky said we wanted somebody to come in with, especially that could answer questions that they might have. And so I'm hoping that this will be a good turnout. July is a rough time right after 4th of July weekend, I think, for turnouts, but we will advertise it.
And this is a webinar for the fraud prevention
Yes.
thing you're doing.
For seniors, yeah. It's designed for older folk. Younger folk can come. It was awesome. We had Zena and Alba there, and they were tremendous help and very good at talking and pulling everybody in together.
Sorry, Crystal thought you said frog prevention. She was trying to figure out what to put in the minutes. So
FUD.
fraud. Frogs are welcome.
That's awesome. I'm glad there were inclusivity committee folks there, that you had seniors there that were excited to learn. I'm glad that that's a thing that we're doing. Is there anything that you need aside from sort of setting up your webinar that like we can
Someone
help
way
with?
better on technology than us, so, we're piecing it together. Crystal's been a bit of help. And we've got to get a different adapter because her phone is different than my projector. So,
To clarify, so is it you're showing a webinar that someone else is putting on? Okay. At first I thought you were putting on the webinar, and so, okay, that makes, so it's a webinar that people
Already
can either, if they have the capability to watch on their own at home, they can, or they can come and watch it with you at the library.
And this is kind of new for us. We're not sure they can find it after the time. It just so happens that it's being shown on July 8th at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So we're watching it live.
It's an AARP.
Whereas we don't know if it's, we could find it later.
I don't know.
Okay. Cool.
It would be nice if we could.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for clarifying.
Awesome. Does anyone have anything they want to add about the event? Any questions about the one that happened in June or any upcoming event? Zena, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I didn't know if it had been talked about in our last meeting, but I think, isn't our next one a book swap?
We had talked about doing a book swap if we couldn't pull the fraud together, but I'm thinking that was the highest interest.
Yes.
So we do
Okay,
the
great.
fraud, but we will do a book swap at another time and maybe have an author come and speak. Yeah,
Fantastic. I will let people know.
great, thank you.
Seriously. Y'all
I know, this is great.
coming up with
People have good ideas.
and getting input from people. It's about fun. All right. Well, if no one has anything else to add on that, we will move on to the National Hispanic Latino Heritage Month event that we talked about the last couple of meetings. So we discussed a few different options for what an event could look like in our last meeting. And then I followed up with Chris Workman about if any of those were feasible. And it sounds like if there's an education component to it, then there could be funds available to us to bring in a group for tabling or a speaker or something like that. But we talked about potentially doing something at the farmer's market, and Janelle is enthusiastically in favor of this idea of having maybe a local group with a table, doing some information sharing and potentially some sort of live music in addition to that, sort of somewhere at the market at a to be determined date if we decide to do that. So I just wanted to check in with everyone and see what thoughts are, if there's a preference for events, things like that. Diane has.
I've got two things. First of all, I did talk to the librarian when we were in there to see, I think at one time Christopher had worked with the library about pulling books on different topics. She's got a book corner that she said, I asked if she could do a Hispanic, either heritage or art or history corner, and she said yes, she would be open for that. And then Alba actually volunteered at that time to actually do some reading in Spanish, which I think would be an awesome connection to that. And maybe, well, I guess they're closed on the farmer's market. I was gonna say, maybe we could do it all at the same time. I am still concerned about the political climate right now. There have been people now in Oregon that have been stopped and taken horribly. So I would not feel good about having a big event right now. I think end of the year would be better. But I do think the writing and some books and I did talk to a former student of mine that's Hispanic and she runs a business here. She's wonderful. And she was really upfront with me. She said, "What?" I said, "Oh, you know, Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to October 15th. She goes, "I've never heard of it." She said, "That sounds like a white person's event to me." And I said, And she goes, "I don't even," she said, "I don't think our family would even come. That's just a weird thing to even be talking about." And then I asked if they could do food, because they do food, and she said, well, her sister-in-law does sell tacos at fairs and events like that, but I wasn't sure of a date or a time or whether we were even going to do it, but I was just trying to capture her thoughts, and she gave it to me, and I appreciated her honesty. She was obviously right up front with me, and that was good. Have you heard, this has been celebrated since 1968, so then I went home and did some research to see how long it's been Hispanic Heritage Month, and 1968 is when it started. It was a day, I believe, at that time, and then maybe 15, 20 years later, they moved it into a month. Is that what you know of Hispanic Heritage Month? Have you ever heard of it?
Well, my husband is a teacher,
Uh-huh.
and so he knows the dates
Yeah.
of celebration here, but other than that, no, it's of no concern to me. But I just moved here, also, it's not of no concern in Mexico.
Well, her family spends some time in Mexico, and she said in Mexico, July is a much more common month for celebrations, and she said she's just trying to figure out why it is and who came up with it. I guess I don't know.
But
It was interesting.
I don't know who I had a conversation with, but that we were thinking that maybe it's too soon to organize something like in either of these activities. Like maybe we're a little bit too close to the dates, and we were thinking that maybe for next year.
Yeah, well, we talked at the last meeting, we talked about the original idea that we had about using the entire frolic ground and doing a big thing like that. There are several risks that committee members brought up for an event like that. And so we discussed at the last meeting availability of committee members to plan it. And if it was smaller, then perhaps it would be a much easier lift. And so we did some info gathering on what it could look like if we decided to move forward with it. At a much, like even the farmer's market thing, if we did that, would be more of a, this is happening during the farmer's market to, celebrate and educate, but also it's not necessarily specifically targeted to like, it would be a different sort of event than what we were envisioning for that larger event.
So like the way I had heard it before was that kind of like it would be maybe an additional or in substitution of whatever the nonprofit table would be. You would have like a community organization there, and maybe some sort of activity or something. Is that kind of
Possible. I mean, I don't
Okay.
think we,
and then
I don't know if we
maybe
necessarily
someone-
got that deep
needs-
into
gotcha.
So that would be the next step, is if we wanted to do an event like this, like at the farmer's market or something, like what it would look like. And
So then, thank you. So then to follow up on that, I was, oh, yes, there are, I mean, every culture is not a monolith for sure. And like, I understand and appreciate that viewpoint of like, well, maybe this is for white people or something like that. And also, I think for me, speaking personally, like, it's important to me who, like, I think there's certain generations, like now we're growing up more with the idea of having these different cultural appreciation and heritage recognition, et cetera, types of periods of time, months typically. And for me, who like settler colonialism has very much like destroyed a lot of those roots and like trying to repair those and reclaim that ancestry. Like I also see this as a time to try to like celebrate that and continue to mend and do that work because like my dad was taught growing up, like, no, we speak English in this house. Like we're in America, we're gonna speak English, no Spanish. And that's really unfortunate for my sisters and I, who would really like to be fluent and much more like, you know, a bit more closer to those cultural practices that we aren't as close to currently. So I understand and appreciate, and also I think it's, I don't think it hurts to have a sort of event and agree that a large event is too soon for now, for today or this year, whatever words. But if the group has like the capacity to be able to put something smaller together, that it would be worth it.
Zena, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jessica. Oh, am I muted? No.
Nope,
We
we
got
can hear
you.
you.
After discussing last month and thinking about it and talking with more people, I kind of agree with this idea that we should do something, but I feel like, again, we haven't really connected deeply with the people that we would be asking to be involved. I think that if there's an organization that would like to come, possibly, but I think that the risk of putting anyone in danger or the risk of having anyone be detained, it just should be front and foremost in our minds. And how can we really center the thoughts of those people? And I don't know who's talking with who outside of these meetings, but yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't feel quite right if we're not more involved with those groups and those people this year. Yeah, just like Black History Month in previous times, it can feel a bit tokenizing. It can feel a bit uncomfortable. So I just ask that we be more intentional. So yeah, maybe something small. That's where I'm coming from.
Thank you for sharing that thought. I agree with you. Like, I would not want to do an event like this where we're not actually like reaching out to folks in the community that we're trying to celebrate and involving them. I think the reason we haven't talked to anybody specific at this point, I mean, we've done some sort of very gentle info gathering about, is this something that people would be interested. Is this something that we can do at a logistics city level? And now that we have that information, it sort of empowers us to be more intentional about who we're reaching out to and asking to be involved in something like this. So it sounds to me like, oh, I'll have
Yes.
yes.
So I think that what Jessica was saying is really important, and the fact that somebody from Mexico does not know about the day, or I didn't know about the day because I just moved here, shouldn't matter at all because it's a date that is celebrated here for a reason, and I think we look at the historical reasons for that. Then I think that taking into account what Jessica was saying is a celebration of the heritage and the recognition of that in the communities. And so I don't know, I mean, I don't think it's necessary to classify it as who would be celebrating. I don't think it's necessarily for one sector of the population, but I think it would help to bring awareness to the community in general that there is a history of Hispanic heritage. And so I would think that the farmers market would be appropriate for doing that because it's not it's not isolating the celebration, but it's bringing it into the community.
So it sounds like we're in favor of doing some sort of event at the farmer's market in the dates that, like in that date range, September to October.
And if we look at as, I understand what Zena was saying about how that connection with the community hasn't been from the city of Philomath. Maybe this is an opportunity for that. Maybe this is the platform for that. In my work that I get paid for, I partner a lot with Casa Latino Unidos, and they always jump at the opportunity to be out in the community and talking to people. So I would definitely put their name out there as a potential.
And
And
I know,
sorry.
go ahead, Zena.
I was gonna say there's so much historical precedent again for Latinos in our community. I think it would be really cool if we can't do it this year to kind of partner with the museum and things like that, or find, there's so many incredible photos of lumber workers and, historic settlers, that, if we can't maybe if we're trying to be more community fully centered, then like, let's connect it to our history. Like who was here in our town and how do we,
Yeah, that's a really good
continue
point.
that.
Because even if we didn't show something like that using those materials from the museum at this event, it's possible we could work with the museum and see if the curator would put something together specifically. I know folks have asked before and they've put sort of specialty displays together. So we could ask them to maybe curate something that pairs with the work we're doing here and we can kind of cross direct them. That's a really good idea.
I like what they did with Pride.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Pride history walk that started last year's Pride and is now a big exhibit in Corvallis. So I think they would be happy to work with us on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on the lawn. Yeah. And it's in Philomath too.
By the museum,
Yeah.
there is a queer, I think they originally called it queer pioneers, but understood that that was kind of a colonizer term. And so queer lumineers is what they're calling it. But important people to the LGBTQIA+ community in Oregon.
Super cool. Diane.
Alba made a really great point that I've been doing all this time thinking that this would be for the Latino community, and it's an American holiday that we are celebrating. It's for everybody. And that was a really great point that you made, because she said she's never celebrated before, but now that she's here and it's an American holiday, she wants to do that. And I think that's gives me a whole new perspective.
I'll just say anecdotally, mentioned the possibility to the flop. She's very excited about it.
Good.
Yeah.
We'll put her to work. Ask her all kinds of opinions.
The first lady of Philomath.
Gotcha.
In full disclosure, I stole that from Chaz.
I like it.
The mop and flop.
Well, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so next steps for this would be outreach to folks that we want to be involved in September to October. I would imagine the first step in that process is figuring out what dates are available at the farmer's market and going from there. So I'm happy to reach out to Janelle and get a handful of dates. And then we can reach out to whoever. And if folks have specific people that they think would be great for an event like this, like a musician or education group or something like that, maybe we can send those to me and we can discuss them. Well, we would want to start finalizing. So I guess back up. We're gonna back this up. My brain's if there's people who are interested in organizing this event and want to do so outside of these meetings, that's the best way to get this done quickly.
As long as it's not a quorum.
Right, so there can only be three
Official committee members and then not as many non-official committee members.
Yep.
As our little hearts desire.
So is there anyone in this room or online who feels super passionate about planning this event? Several people's.
I would be happy to help out.
Okay.
So
Same, but I cannot.
Yeah. I'll be
like-
less busy after this week. But
Same.
I can't quite necessarily be the front planner, but like I'm happy to assist and be told what to do.
okay.
I can definitely commit to that. A little difficult at the moment.
So we would need to do the planning and everything in how many weeks' time?
Well, so that's someone would need to reach out, or I can reach out to Janelle and find out what dates would be available for that are kind of up for offer, and then share that with the event planning group. And then from there, it would be up to the group to figure out the logistics of that, with help from staff, of course, figuring out budget and what kind of funding is available, if any, and that sort of thing.
Okay, I'm
Does that-
happy
does
to
that-
help.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
And as a reminder, we can still have another official committee member.
Yes.
Question. Where is the line drawn at what Chris can approve as city manager versus recommending to council? Because this is a line that I never know where it is.
So when I talked to him about this, I didn't say, can I have money for this? And he didn't say yes.
Mhm.
I was like, what are the options and potential like pieces that can move? And he said, there is money in the budget for education.
Right.
And so if there's an educational component and we want to I assume, and wanted to request that from the council, then it would be.
Yeah, I
Just people
think,
have to plan.
right.
that.
It's a good question. I think the short answer is there's a legal answer and then there's a in practice answer. I think legally Chris can, sign checks of up to like $50,000 without council approval, but it has to be in the budget that the council
Right.
set. So I think his answer would just be like, if he feels confident, like unquestionably, that it is aligned with the council's goals and intentions, then he can just approve it. But if he has any sort of like just wanting to make sure that it's what the council wanted, then he'd probably take it back to the council. So I think that's part of why it's always been a little tricky with this, because like it's not out of like an inclusivity events line item, it's out of an education line item. And so I think that's why he always brings, because it's like, is like having a musical artist perform for Hispanic and Latino Awareness or Heritage Month in educational. I mean, people can learn from it, but like, it's not like a conference or a speaker. So I think that's why he often brings something back like that, as opposed to other things we fund that like, there is a specific council line item in a budget, so he doesn't need to check on that. That would be my. Yeah, I think it's more. It's just like if he feels confident that he can do it and it's what the council wants. But if he is worried that the council won't like what he did, then he would want to bring it back. But yeah,
I think
then- Sorry, real quick follow-up. So then the question would be, I mean, I know you don't necessarily know, but like if we had an educational component plus like music or something like that, how likely is it that he would fund like whatever it took to put that whole event together versus like a portion of it? Do you have a good read on?
when you say
Yeah.
he would fund, you mean without the councils?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay,
without,
okay.
like, just trying to figure out so that we know if we need to take anything to council.
What if in your planning you put in that buffer that you would need to bring it to council, and if you don't?
Because I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
got
just
it.
assume it would.
I think the easiest option might just be to bring it to the July council meeting of just, we don't know exactly the full plan yet, but like, here's the, general, like, we want to do some event. Can we authorize the city manager to, spend up to blank dollars from the education budget for whatever the inclusivity committee decides on for this? I think that might be, so we don't need to like, because I think the council will probably be fine with it. It's just.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
think I get
For transparency's sake alone.
Yeah.
And for our committee to also not be, again, trying to get our city to like essentially write blank checks. I think that it's prudent to, again, transparency, but also we can get it done for, but it should be brought before the city council anyways, regardless of how much Philomath, like, I don't know, shoestring community stuff that we can do, which I think we can do a lot of, which is amazing. But I think either way.
Yeah. I think the other piece of context for this that I'm just remember, like that line item is also in the city council budget. So they're like, I'm the department head for the city council budget, I guess, whereas if it's in the public works budget, the public works director can kind of sign off on, or if it's in the administration budget. So I think that's part of why this comes back more than other things, is it's in our department. So we have to approve it more than certain other things, but yeah.
it's changed so many times.
Right. Yeah. No, totally.
Cool, thank you.
I would to suggest, I would help, I also don't want to take it all on.
Apparently no one does.
Happy to do the library thing if that's something that's interesting, but I would suggest that we might pick a time like 1:00 and have the band or the musicians come and play for an hour. I don't think it's realistic to play for the entire time of the farmer's market. It could be hot, could be,
Will be.
but maybe not. Also, I would suggest that around September 15th, there's a September 14th is a Sunday, or September 21st it seems like the weather might be better than possibly in October. It could get cold or rainy. It could in September too. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so I have Christopher, Jessica being told what to do. Zena is interested as well.
Yeah,
Anyone?
I'm interested in and can help with like um the photos and everything. I've been collecting photos and like yeah, I have a whole stack of photos of pioneer history of Latinos, Hispanics, people of color, LGBTQ plus people. Yeah. So I'm happy to help coordinate with some, something like that.
I would probably feel more comfortable leaving it, like if we were to, I think that we should probably leave any sort of educational stuff to the people who are paid to do that, or like have um, they're part of like the organizations themselves. But that is my preference. I don't know how others feel. And that maybe we should stick more to
I mean, I think,
asking collaborators to.
yeah, it would be more like,
Yeah, it would be in collaboration with those other people, just like
well,
Black
no,
History Month or the other events
no,
that we've done.
sorry, I mean, it would be like sort of what Jessica's saying is like, it would be more logistics and less creative, like,
Yep, that's what we're
yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, it seems like the role of whoever takes this on, whoever decides to lead the project needs to be facilitation and not content programming.
Yes.
So it sounds like, Rose, you had connections at Casa Unidos that you,
Got the Latino union.
yeah, that you might be willing to share with us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of thing where it's like, we need to finalize a date. So talk with Janelle, obviously, find out when we can do this, when would work, and then find out who are we going to partner with for it, because we quite frankly don't have the experience to put it on ourselves. And this is something we want to do for the first time. And for the first time, it's going to be introducing this to the community and trying to gauge interest for a larger event maybe next year. Working with a nonprofit like them would work really well. Yeah.
Because they do events a lot.
And then, yeah, if there's anything that they wanted from us, if they were like, oh, and if you have any like connections with the museum, blah, 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 we would love to like work with them as well. Again, the role should be facilitation and listening. It shouldn't be like, we will go ahead and do this and here's exactly what it will look like and you just need to show up and do blah, blah.
Yeah, there's too much of that
Very
already.
Okay.
So
Diane has a question and
Like
then
to
we
help us.
Oh, you,
not
okay, okay, you did. Diane.
Loader
has
of
another
This
question.
organization you're talking about, do they volunteer? Do they need to be paid?
No, they're a nonprofit, and basically they are facilitators for folks that are maybe not English speakers, undocumented community, and they provide resources, support, that sort of thing.
Well, they could even just have some pamphlets about their organization too.
When I see them at community events, they like to have more conversations because we were talking about the fear in the community, and so having like people from that department that might be able to resource out instead of like just having a pamphlet to throw at somebody is what I've seen in the past. But
They're very involved. They were even at the Black Rural Networking Conference, and so yeah, it'd be good to have conversations.
yeah, I could definitely start a conversation and then pass that off to Christopher.
What happens when you speak up first?
I mean, I would be happy to take it on, but I think that we're already at we're at a max for official committee.
We are
I
not.
think-
We are,
And
we
I
are
don't
not at an
really-
official. You would be the,
I'm happy to take it on.
I don't think
say-
technically I'm official either.
Okay, that I wasn't sure who is and isn't official. I was just like, I didn't want to assume.
Yeah.
So, forgive me if there's discussion involved. Is this Diane?
Well, so Diane was talking about doing the library, like,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
which
I
would
think
be
the
separate.
library thing is very cool, and I think it can be separate enough that we don't run into the risk of like getting a finger shook at us saying that we violated some city rule. Yeah,
So wait, so who else is doing this at this point?
I will lead.
Okay.
I will need help, but I will
Yes.
lead.
Okay.
Sabina.
All right, yes, can,
Okay, so Jen Amador is leading it.
Yes.
Zena Allen will be helping. Jessica Andrade will be helping. Christopher
Awesome.
Horn will be helping. And Alba
Cinderlin.
Cinderlin will be helping. And then Diane will be.
Wait. Well, you're the connection too.
If you are willing to like make the connection, because I don't really. I'll be able to participate.
Beautiful.
Can I give a shout out? There's a lady that works in the city hall office, Julie, and they happened to be in the office, and a Hispanic man walked in, and she was interpreting and listening to him very fluently. I was extremely impressed. She did a fantastic job, and he was there 10 or 15 minutes, and they were just talking.
That's so important.
Yeah.
You have to be greeted by someone in your the language that you speak.
Okay, so plan is you all will connect.
Yes.
You can share. I can
Report back.
share contact information with you. Is that allowed? Okay.
well,
I can do.
as long as it's not a quorum meeting.
Right. I can share contact information with you for all the people who have agreed to help.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, I think first step is just gonna be figuring out what date or
Yeah.
what dates
Yeah,
are
we can-
available.
we can
And
find that
then-
out very quickly.
Yeah, great. As I say, you know the lady.
Yeah.
I know where you live. That is not a threat.
About as quick of information as you can get.
What's the name of that housing development?
Quick Google.
So I signed the council up the farmer's market, so I have some of that information if you to have that ahead of time.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we could always just co-opt one of the council spots, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Slash knowing which ones are available for August for the.
Oh, for inclusivity committee.
Yeah, it's on the spreadsheet that Crystal sent out, which, by the way, sidebar, Crystal's in charge of the city right now because everyone's on vacation.
That's why everything feels so.
So well run today.
Yeah, exactly.
So, cool. You all work on that and then I'll add an update for that to the July agenda.
Great.
Hear from our planning group.
Fantastic.
Perfect. Does anyone have anything else they want to add to that before we move along? Sounds like a no.
Basically what I think about these stuff. So I'm just like, I'll get it. No one's gonna stop. It's fine.
Yeah. Yes. We have 35 minutes. Well, lucky we're moving into the, so in the interest of time, because the next item, is the awareness calendar, I think if there's anything pertinent for the upcoming months for us to talk about, we should do that. And then at the next meeting, or potentially the August meeting, talk more about potential new things to add to it. Rose.
I would propose that it would be smart if we created a process for choosing what recognition months, days get chosen. Last time we did this, I think we had a list. I kind of compiled, and honestly, I kind of chose from them, and then we had a conversation, and it kind of felt like we were like weighing which was more important, which just felt gross. I don't think that's the right way to do it. So maybe we could have a conversation about how it'll be chosen, and if you're going to have like a point person that just organizes them and then brings it back to the committee, or how that will look. I think we learned a lot last time.
Yeah.
So.
I was not here for that process.
Yeah, Van and I put together the calendar. I mean, we went from Waffle Day to Otter Day to, I mean, there's every day is a holiday. Every day is something to celebrate.
That was from a list that we had generated
Yeah.
from the previous year.
Christopher, you got your hand up.
Two things. I guess I mean I agree with that. I think I'm always torn between like it's good to have processes for things, but I also don't want to over processize things. I'm not saying I have a solution. I think it's a good conversation for us to have. And then maybe this can be part of that conversation, but we did get a suggestion to include Rare Disease Month as a
Yes.
potential
Yeah.
thing in the future, which is actually during February. So I just wanted to flag that maybe for future discussion.
I also think to that point, if we're doing Black and African American Heritage Month in February, but there's another thing that falls in that month, there's nothing saying that we can't do an event for one and a social media post for another, or if there are a couple different things in a month that we think.
Yeah, I know. I do. I mean, the whole, to Zena's point, it is a challenge because like every single day of the year is something day or something week or something month. And so like I do think part of the conversation, like, do we focus on things that like are especially relevant to the philomath population? How do we sort of choose? Because I agree, it is kind of a weird thing to be like, well, we feel like the Holocaust is more important than this other thing, so we're gonna talk about that. Or like, well, we think, so I don't, yeah, I think it would be a good agenda item in the future of just like, what do we want the inclusivity calendar? Because I think up to this point, the inclusivity calendar, our goal was to just like not let it die. But now that it's actually a thing that is relied upon, I think now it's time to kind of look back and be like, okay, we have this thing established. How can we make sure it's the best it can be? So.
But especially considering that we have like an archive now of social media posts, we have lots of wonderful reusable banners, we have proclamations, and so, and I think Rose had made a point last meeting of like, well, when do we cycle something off, and whether or not that is like part of the conversation, or if it becomes a sort of keeping track of like, oh, we've been doing, I don't know. Thoughts about that would be nice to try to figure out, and not cycle off forever, but like, oh, we could probably spotlight something else a bit more.
Yeah.
But I also want to make a note real quick, that, I wanted to ask, do National Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month banner?
I haven't started.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. We have plenty of time. It was just I was looking at the 3-month thing and was like,
Yep. Good thing to get on.
Do we still haven't, we'll work on it, but we still need to come up with a list of, again, what do we have and what do we not have in regards
we have,
to,
we
okay,
have that.
gotcha.
Yeah, we have a list.
Great.
Yeah.
Alba has her
And then, sorry, Abba, go for it.
Well, when you mentioned with population, you could even do for some celebrations do a poll, asking people. I don't know if that would be a social media poll, and then have them discuss it in comments. I don't know.
Scary place.
If we are, then that would be really, I mean, considering the amount of marginalized communities we have, and given the fact that we are like one of the whitest states, I would love to see a survey, but I would not want our survey to lead our intention. And the idea of like cycling things off or on, just it doesn't quite, I mean, I think if we can add things like at the library, or disease awareness, Rare Disease Awareness Month, trust me, I know it's important as a person with rare diseases, to have, even if it's just a meeting at the library where there's resources and snacks and things like that, cycling things in and then building them up, I find better than trying to say, okay, we've done we've done Black History Month, or we've said something about the Holocaust. We're just gonna not find that important anymore, or pride, or I think we should build, not try to take things away, even
Yeah,
if it's just small, even if it's just small ways of building things.
I don't think the idea was to like celebrate them once and then never talk about them again. I think it was more like, okay, we highlighted this and did a big event for this last year. Now we're going to use some of our, it still exists. We'll still potentially acknowledge it in some way with a banner or a post or something, but energy will go towards something different in the next year so that like it's inclusive, right? We're bringing
Right.
focus to different groups and not necessarily like, we talked about you once, check, we did our thing. We never have to talk about that group of people again. We're so good. It's, we talked about this group of people. We highlighted them. They're important. They're in our community. Here's this other group of people. And there's ways to intersection, like, right? Like we don't, all of those groups can intertwine in some way. Like, so it's, I don't think we're talking about checking off a list. It's how do we, as a group, use our energy in a good way? Like, we can't throw 6 events every 3 months or whatnot. So like, how do we spread the love to all the groups and continue to revisit them in an equitable way?
And even if we like decide to skip a particular event we've been doing, like 1 year, doesn't mean that we don't come back to it, and like that we don't have that information that we can refer back to build upon it at a
Right.
future.
So, I mean, yeah, if we need to, like, again, take a break off of like a year of Pride or something like that, yeah, I can understand that. I just think it could be, it's going to be really difficult.
Yeah, I think that, so what I've done based on conversations that we're having is I've added to my list for an upcoming agenda for us to actually spend some quality time on what the process looks like and figure out if that's something we want to do, what that looks like. Yeah,
It sounds like people have a lot of thoughts, so
Cool.
this will be something good to bring to the next meeting.
sounds good. I don't know if it'll be the next meeting, but it's on the list of things to discuss in the near future. All right, and so you brought up the banner. We'll talk about that. Diane gave an update on that. I don't know if there's anything. There's, for the next 2 months, we have social media posts. That's later in our agenda. So we do have stuff to post in the next 2 months on the calendar. So we're doing pretty good there. All right. Any other quick thoughts on that?
I have a question.
Yes.
Drafting the process, is that you?
We're gonna discuss it. We're gonna discuss as a group what the process is for that at a future meeting. I don't want to do that by myself.
I don't blame you.
But we can come with ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it'll be on the agenda, and folks will be encouraged to bring ideas on how that will work.
Kudos if you send it in before.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Resolution 25-16 Proclaiming Inclusivity proclamation that we sent to City Council last month. It has been returned to us by the council for review because Councilor Caseman had a suggestion. In the packet, there's a letter from Councilor Caseman about the addition that he would like to make and wants the committee to consider. Folks in the room have a printed statement from a resident on Jeff Sheminsky, who submitted a letter on his thoughts about the addition to the proclamation. So it is now open for us to discuss.
So City Councilor, just to understand,
Yeah.
City Councilor Caseman made a suggestion to add what's in bold there.
Yep.
Yes.
And then.
Yeah, the entire proclamation is exactly the same except for that bolded text.
Yeah. Is it okay if I just
Please
give a
do.
little,
Yep.
like from, and it's outlined in his letter here and in the memo a little bit, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Yeah. So the proclamation came up before the city council, and it's not uncommon for the council to make little tweaks to things before we approve them. So, you know, people are obviously, any councilor is welcome to make a motion on any agenda item. And so Councilor Caseman made a motion to add that bolded text to the proclamation. And then Councilor Salsa, well, and then we started kind of talking about it and there were different opinions. But Councilor Salsa just brought up the fact that that feels like more of a material change. And since there wasn't like a hard timeline to get this done, that Councilor Salsa felt more comfortable if it was sent back to the committee that drafted it to decide if that material change was included or not. Because most of the changes the council makes are more like, you know, altering a date or, you know, tweaking something. It's not changing the whole substance. Or if we do change the substance, it's because like we have to pass it, you know, that night for legal reasons or something, whereas there's no legal ramifications of this. And then I think Councilor Caseman was hoping to be here and be able to answer your questions or talk about it, but we ran into just the issue of there are already 3 councilors here. So if he were here as well, that would be a quorum of the entire city council. So then this would have to be technically a city council meeting. And that just felt like more logistical hurdles than we were prepared for the meet. And it also gets weird because it's like, then if this committee decides something with 4 city councilors in attendance, does that mean the city council also? So it just, there were some questions that we didn't really want to answer. Instead he wrote this letter, which I'm grateful for him doing and outlining his thoughts in here. And then I think the council's just hoping to receive the proclamation back with whatever changes or no changes or whatever direction the committee decides tonight. And then I think the councilors here can pass the message along to the rest of the council about whatever we decide on that. So that's just the context. I can share my personal thoughts down the road, but I'm curious what everyone else thinks too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions on the process?
Well, do you want to explain what the addition is for those who
Oh, yeah,
may
sure.
not be?
So yes, so there's a section in the Inclusivity Proclamation. It's the second whereas clause that reads, whereas Philomath strives to be a city based on mutual respect and understanding, a community that welcomes and values all residents and treats everyone with human dignity and respect. And then Councilor Caseman made a motion to add on the end of that clause, it would read, and treats everyone with human dignity and respect because they are made in the image of God. And so that's the motion that the council did not take action on and sent to you all to advise on. So, yeah.
Absolutely not. No. I am stunned at the audacity that is presented with putting this into this. I think the point of Inclusivity Committee is to include everybody, and there are many people in the community that do not believe in a Christian God, which is what this is pointing out. My husband is one of them. I personally am agnostic. I'm not allergic to religion. I have friends who are religious. I grew up in Utah, which is majority Mormon, and I have a lot of lovely people I know who are LDS. But even growing up in somewhere that got joked about as being a theocracy, their city council in the city I grew up with would never have done something like this. It was grossly inappropriate.
Agreed.
Sure, I shared my opinion at the city council. I believe pretty strongly in the separation of
Church and state.
church and state. There are those are the words I was looking for. That's part of America, is that I'm able to believe what I want to believe, and there's not a king telling me that I have to worship or do something. And that's where the founding fathers were. That was part of the reason to build a new country, was so that they were free in religious choice. And while I may agree with the statement, I don't believe it belongs in a governmental proclamation.
Absolutely.
Well said.
I guess I agree with that. I think similar to Councillor Crocker, I agree with the statement, and I also don't think it's a statement that we should make as a city council. The one thing I actually did like, though, from the letter was just the sort of the concept that human dignity and human rights are not bestowed by a government, that they are like inalienable rights, wherever you think that comes from. So I was just curious how the committee would feel about somehow working that into the proclamation of just like, even, I just like the word unalienable, just because I feel like it's in the Declaration of Independence and nowhere else. So let's start using it more. So I was even thinking about just something like, and treats everyone with human dignity, or like with respect and unalienable human dignity, or something like that. Oh, perfect. See, look at that. Just because I do like that, like, you know, we're not just treating people with respect because the city council passed a proclamation. We're doing it because it's like the right human thing to do. Which I liked that sentiment out of this. But you know, you don't have rights because the Constitution says you have rights. You have rights because you're a human being. Yeah.
I think Alba's point about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is probably something that we could look to for language and phrasing.
And
Hold on.
sorry.
Jessica had her hand up, and then I'll go to Zena.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's a good point. But yeah, I agree that that clause should not be in there, separation of government and religion. In thinking about this also, like the reasoning used of because like people I don't know, because there was, what was it? There was a sentence though where it said,
We treat everyone with dignity not because it is granted by a city proclamation, nor because it is the opinion of some that we should do this. I liked that, and then it was immediately followed up with more,
the idea that the people of the city of Philadelphia consider slavery objectively evil and repulsive, not because it is a mere opinion and personal preference, but because those enslaved are the image of God and for that reason worthy of dignity and love, a truth that resonates deep in our hearts. And I'm just like, no, like that, like,
you had me in the first half, and you lost me.
yeah, it's not because, it's just because like we are who we are. We are
Also
important for who we are, not because we look like your God or whatever, but
the irony of naming the Declaration of Independence and the importance of this and, you know, freedom from slavery when it was written by a slave owner.
exactly. But then also the other thing that I am realizing now as well, treats everyone with human dignity and respect. I lean more towards the I would prefer to delete the human part of it, because like in all honesty, we really should be treating our world with dignity and respect as well. But I understand if that's not necessarily a conversation we want to get into for this, but that's something that I would be interested in looking at more closely in the future.
Zena, do you want to add something?
I agree, but I also kind of feel like if we're kind of talking about those kinds of points, then again, saying that this was created out of the result of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter is like, I mean, again, I agree with what you're saying. I just think that some of it is really out of step because again, I'll say it. I'm not here for George Floyd. For me, this has never been about that. And as the only Black person on this committee, like, what is this really about? What has the intention been? And my intention is again to connect and have those inalienable rights for everyone. That's why I'm here, to really be inclusive. So when I asked that last time, I really was hoping that there'd be some thought about that. And this is just kind of, yeah.
I will say just I like was not here at the creation of the inclusivity committee, but my understanding from past conversations about this is that the reason that that is mentioned on line 9 and 10 is that that's the starting point for this committee, right? That's what
Historical context.
it's
That was the
historical context,
catalyst
exactly.
for
Yes.
for the white
That's-
people here. Okay.
For the
Yeah.
inclusivity meeting to be,
No.
or committee to be formed
It was for
here in Philomath.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
city to establish it in the first place.
This is historical context for how the committee came about. I understand your point, and I do understand why you would be concerned about tokenism, but this is about historical grounding and why this only came into being in 2020, which is important considering what happened and what the ripple effects have been of that. This committee is one of the good parts. There are other parts that are not as good, and having that context and understanding what made people suddenly go, oh, okay, this is something we need to have even in our city is important.
Right. And it's not saying that work hasn't been done before this and
I
that
guess,
people.
okay. I understand. I just
Yeah.
feel like it focuses on a single point, and that kind of it sticks with. I mean, I went to Juneteenth and I saw some of you there, and it kind of sticks with me, and I find it kind of harmful that like, oh, this is what it came from, but the continued efforts, again, it doesn't feel like it was for that. And yeah, I do find it yes, it's historical context, but like saying that's why we showed up suddenly for our communities, I don't know. Personally, I find it uncomfortable, and I've talked with other people that find it uncomfortable. But
Okay.
again, that's not a hill I'm gonna die on. I just want to make it known for the record how that kind of language makes me feel when we haven't really we've moved things forward, but if this is the kind of again the principles, we haven't stood on our principles and in that way. And that's where I'm coming from. But again, I understand it's for historical reference. Yeah, just like the mentioning of slavery for this other person. It's all historical context, and so I'm fine with growing from that.
Well, but okay, I'm going to make just a quick comment on that. I'm going to pass it on to Rose because Rose had her
Yep.
hand up.
It's
But
fine.
so for me, this is just my opinion, and yours are valid, and I appreciate that. But I feel like it would be worse if we just claimed this inclusivity's been doing work forever and like claimed that that work was happening before this, like at a city level in a committee like this that didn't exist until 2020. Like it being in that proclamation states that it was an intentional move by community members in partnership with the city to do this work. And like, yes, it, maybe should have happened sooner, but it didn't. And it's just that recognition that, like, yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Same.
I think in the same way that a lot of our activism didn't start because of the murder of George Floyd. I know a lot of people's activism did, and that woke up a lot of people to disparities in our community and across our nation. I'm wondering, and maybe taking a piece of what I think Zena's trying to say, is by naming George Floyd, we're forgetting Breonna Taylor, Sandra Bland. We're forgetting all of the other folks that have been victims of this systemic genocide, essentially. And so I'm wondering if maybe the language of calling out, yes, for a lot of us, it was the murder of George Floyd that was the big wake up. But I think there were multiple factions of like focus,
Right.
even in the summer of 2020. And so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zena, if I'm not understanding what you're trying to say, but I think focusing on George Floyd might be
like going more broad, like still
talking about like racial tension. No, not racial tension,
genocide, like you were saying.
but yeah. I don't know. Changing that language.
Just changing it to,
And correct me if
mean,
I'm wrong, Lucina.
I will. Yeah, I mean, I just think that it came from maybe a response from that, but everything that was happening in 2020 was a changing thing for all of us, from healthcare to all of it. So yes, George Floyd is one, but one of like hundreds of thousands of unknown people, and this is just like, it might have taken some people to be like, oh, it's George Floyd, but as a Black person, that is a reality that we live with every day, and we say their names. And so it kind of sticks with me again, and affirming the principle that all Black lives matter. But this wasn't really about affirming that. It wasn't for me. Obviously, I knew my life mattered. It was about how to create something inclusive so that we could all live together and carry on from MLK to all the way, George Floyd, MLK, all of the other names that we're talking about. So I guess I'm just like, what is it? Yeah, that's why I asked what it really meant to folks here. And yeah, but again, that was just me. That's all I have to say about this. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
For the sake of time, since it is 6:54, would it be worth just telling council no, and then we return to these questions about unalienable and how, whether and how to change the language surrounding the George Floyd and stuff like that at a later meeting? Is that something that we're thinking should be a
I think
thing?
that would be wise.
Yep.
I have an idea what we could do for the original question. If I can finish writing this really quick so I don't say the wrong thing. Okay. Because I wrote something and then I looked up the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and it was very similar to what I wrote. So I adapted it. So what if we change the...
This is back to the second whereas.
Second whereas statement. Testing the waters, temperature check, vibe check. How do we feel about whereas Philomath strives to be a city based on mutual respect and understanding, a community that welcomes and values all residents and respects the inherent dignity and equal and inalienable rights of all people.
I love that. That's good.
Okay.
I'm a Quaker. I love it.
It's okay.
Oh, man.
That'll be the suggestion.
I think that, yeah.
That will be the suggestion for that point. Do you want to, give me 1 second. Oh, we still have to review. Okay.
Thank you.
So we can, is it appropriate to report back to council that we've made a change to that piece, that we're still working on another piece, and that
Yeah, I don't
Giving
think
them-
we need to report back to council, but
Okay.
I think that's just because the council didn't ask. I
Right.
think that can be our business.
And then we can bring it
Right,
back
if
to
we
them when
have
it's
a
ready.
change for next year, we can present that to them, but I mean, you could mention it if you want, or we can mention it if we want,
I
but
mean,
I
don't think it's, if it's not
yeah,
necessary,
I think
then,
just for the sake of getting stuff
I thought
streamlined.
that's what Rich also said. That we make a recommendation.
Oh, I think we meant about the second piece about George Floyd. I don't think,
well, that's what I was asking. Do we want
Yeah.
to, do we want to make that change for next year? Like workshop that statement for next year to move this forward with? Yes.
I think that, sorry.
Let's,
So the idea
Yeah, that's why we
would
said
be to send with that information for our next meeting.
yes.
And then we would, on our own, in our meetings, eventually figure out if we want to change that whereas, and if so, how we want to change it.
Right.
And then that would come back next year.
Okay.
Like we would discuss
Right.
that part.
So the, So
But
the-
then we don't necessarily need to tell council that that's what we're.
right, okay, that's the, right.
That's your
So the
question.
reason I was asking, because I was trying to figure out if we were going to try to make all those changes at the next meeting to be read in August.
No.
Or if we're just gonna make the change on what you read.
Yeah.
Why, the reason it was sent back.
Yeah.
Go forward with everything else as is for this year.
Yeah.
And then for next year's proclamation, we can work on touching on Zena's point and reworking that third whereas so that we're,
Yeah.
And whatever
like-
else.
yeah,
And hopefully by then, again, we have more of an understanding and education around such matters to fully be able to like discuss them in this way and
Perfect.
put it in our history. Because it just doesn't,
awesome. Okay, so everybody in the room and online is good with Christopher's edit to send back to be read by city council?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does anyone want to go read it again, or did you get it, Crystal? Do you need it? I can just tell you afterwards.
Okay,
I had one comment.
Yes,
and
please.
it's probably moot right now, but I agree I think we should take the George Floyd thing out because what other proclamation do we make that includes the history of when that group started? We don't have proclamations for any else that we say, well, city council started because back in 1856, they decided they needed a government. We don't do that. And so I'm in support of that.
Doesn't our Women's History Month have a history of how that became Women's History Month?
All of the months have that.
That
but not
recognition of the
specifically
history.
this,
But
And-
like as a group is which I think is,
I see what you're saying.
okay. I will make that note for our future discussion.
and even with those, I mean, there's continual context and education that needs to be learned again.
Yeah.
Only white women were allowed to vote for one, so things like that. It just, how are we connecting it to our present is what I'm curious with. So we can take it all the way back to George Flowers if we want. So I don't want to take it all the way back there.
All right, cool. Well, we can work on that. We'll make that a point to add that to an agenda so that we can dig into that. We are at time, but very quickly, I want to just have everybody give their yays or nays about the social media posts that are in the packets. Diana's done an Independence Day post for July, and then also a Senior Citizens Day post for August, so that we're ahead of the game. He's on it. Is there anything in there that,
That's fine. I'll just Scrivener's, there's an I at the end of Independence Day on the very top. That needs to be deleted, yeah. And then, I don't know if it really matters, but I think, and then there's a space after Jefferson between that and the period.
yep,
And then also, I don't know if that is capitalized.
I think Crystal will
Yeah.
make sure everything's.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
My
you're
inner
good.
Ruth Causey
Con-
coming out.
I know.
Content wise, is there anything on either of those that folks?
Content-wise, they look fine.
Yep, they look great.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. Thank you for putting those together. Appreciate it.
And my computer died, so then I had to work on my laptop, and so I am not surprised there might be some typos or spaces because I do not like them.
Okay. Well, Crystal has the copy and the files for that, so we will get those up. Oh, did you? Oh, we just lumped them together. You want to?
Oh, I missed
Is there
that.
anything?
No.
I mean, I didn't. I just. It's very informal.
Yeah, no, that's good. They're both great.
Cool. For July agenda items, I have reviewing the age-friendly proclamation that Jane has been working on. Jane and Jessica have been working on, so that we can send that to council to have them read in August. So,
Sorry, say that one more time.
you know, the age-friendly proclamation, we have it on. I had a note that we were going to send it to council to be read. You guys worked on one many months ago.
Oh, okay, I trust you.
Yeah.
I was like,
So it'll be in the packet. It'll be in the packet.
Oh, yeah,
for
we did.
July for final edits and changes so that we can send that to the council to be read in August. I also had a note about your Tackle for Hunger event to talk about in July, if that's still a thing that's happening. Is there anything else that we didn't discuss in this meeting that anybody wants to add? You can also email me and tell me.
Oh,
I don't think the Tackle for Hunger is lifted off the ground. I
Okay.
will work on it.
I put a note to bring it up in July
Yes.
closer so that if there was something happening and we could help lift,
I
like
will
having
do it
inclusivity
before
committee
the
members
school is
volunteer
out.
or, yeah.
I think I.
Depending on the liaison to do that.
Oh, I
I
see.
did. I think I did forward your, email, but then forgot to bring it up at your meeting. So, is it? If I can get an answer now, is that too late to do anything? Or because it was about the fall football season.
Get the teachers that are
Yeah.
doing the honor society and the student council on board, and they need to start in August.
Okay.
And administration's just about off for a month now.
Right.
Okay.
real quick, July 5th, what time? At the museum? It's the
10 to noon.
10 to noon seeds from Roots, Wings, Seeds.
Oh, right.
At the Philomath Museum.
Bring
It's
your
gonna
kids.
be awesome. Bring your kids. I had a blast at Wings last time. But yeah, talking about where we are going, because Roots was where we came from, Wings is where we are in the moment going, and then Seeds growing future, correct? Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Like, did I get it right?
If there's anything that folks want to recommend for the July agenda, get that to me before the 14th, preferably earlier because I will be in San Francisco 15th, and I'm going to try to put the packet together at the beginning of the month as much as possible. Otherwise, we'll see each other on emails and out and about. Thank you for your time. Apologize for the extra 5 minutes. I just really wanted to hang out with everybody.
It's not bad.
Thank you.
Bye, Tina. Thank you for coming.